Ever sit through a massive $100 million blockbuster and get this weird, creeping sense of déjà vu? Like you literally know exactly what's going to happen, minute by minute? Look, you're not psychic. You're just feeling the cold, rigid machinery of the Hollywood formula grinding away. So we gotta ask, is there a secret paint-by-numbers blueprint being used to artificially manufacture every single hit movie we watch?
Well, in this explainer, we're tearing down the illusion of Hollywood magic. We're looking at the hard data, the academic research, and the industry rulebooks to expose a pretty provocative thesis. The famous screenwriting manuals that promise to save cinema, they might actually be the exact things destroying its originality. Let's deconstruct the formula. Part 1. The Hollywood Story Formula.
To understand how modern movies are essentially manufactured on an assembly line, we have to look at an inescapable industry Bible published back in 2005. It's Blake Snyder's Save the Cat. Snyder lays down this namesake rule, right? He says that early in a film, the hero absolutely must do something morally praiseworthy, literally like rescuing a cat out of a tree, just so the audience likes them. But academics and story developers push back on this immediately. I mean, think of the greatest anti-heroes in cinema history. Protagonists don't actually need to be likable. They just need to compel our empathy. Forcing a shallow, nice deed, that just leads to incredibly shallow engagement.
Part 2. Disguising boring story exposition. Okay, so the absolute hardest challenge in the first 10 pages of any script is establishing the world and its rules without putting the audience straight to sleep. We're talking about exposition. That's the delivery of backstory or plot details that are completely necessary for the audience to understand what comes next. Snyder actually gets this right. He calls it the ultimate narrative scene killer. If you just drop a stagnant block of facts into a scene, boom, you kill the momentum and you instantly lose the hyper-short attention span of the modern viewer. And this leads writers straight into the laziest trap in modern cinema. The deadly phrase, "Let me get this straight." Screenwriting educator Lou Hunter calls this out aggressively as a clunky, static way to force a recap. Take an early draft of the 2022 movie Scream, for example. It goes, "So let me get this straight. You're saying that you're the daughter of Billy Loomis, and what, that one of us is the killer? Come on, no actual human being talks like this." It completely shatters the illusion and reminds you, hey, you're watching a manufactured product. So how do the actual masters fix this? Enter screenwriting academic Robert McKee, who offers this brilliant, aggressive solution. Convert exposition to ammunition. Don't just politely hand the audience information. Make the characters use their backstory as a weapon to get exactly what they want in that moment. If two characters are viciously fighting to achieve their desires, the audience just absorbs the facts completely unconsciously.
Another killer strategy comes from Sid Field, the whammo effect. Field argues that if you absolutely must deliver heavy, dry exposition, you have to buy the audience's patience first. How? By blasting them with a massive, tense action sequence. Think about the pure kinetic momentum in the opening of Raiders of the Lost Ark. By the time the dust finally settles, the audience is so thrilled, they'll happily sit through a quiet room of professors explaining the incredibly dry history of the Ark of the Covenant. Part 3. The Pope in the Pool. Blake Snyder actually championed one of the most effective practical tools for masking exposition, and it uses pure visual distraction. He called it the Pope in the Pool. It's named after a script that had to deliver this agonizingly dry Vatican politics scene. So what was the writer's solution? Have the representatives deliver the facts to the Pope while he's swimming laps. The audience is so utterly distracted by the sheer absurdity of seeing the pontiff splashing around in a bathing suit that the boring exposition slips right past their defenses unnoticed. And you see this everywhere now. In modern blockbusters, characters rarely just stand there talking. In Kate Messner's mystery novel, Chirp, heavy dialogue gets masked by characters doing something active, like baking cricket flour cookies or swinging on a playground. Or look at Pirates of the Caribbean. Jack Sparrow distracts these completely clueless British sailors with hilarious banter about his ship, effortlessly feeding us vital lore without it ever feeling like a boring history lesson. Part 4. The cookie-cutter problem. But here is the dark side of this whole explainer. When these brilliant, isolated tricks get codified into mandatory laws, they morph into a suffocating trap. Snyder created this massive list he arrogantly titled The Immutable Laws of Screenplay Physics. We're talking rules with names like double mumbo jumbo, laying pipe, too much marzipan. These absurdly named rules act like a straitjacket, heavily pressuring writers to force their stories into an exact preconceived shape which drastically limits any true creative risk.
Let's actually deconstruct the philosophical flaw in just one of these. Double mumbo jumbo. Snyder claims a movie can only have one type of magic before the audience totally rejects it. He uses the movie Signs as an example, bizarrely stating that you can't have sci-fi aliens and a crisis of faith in God in the same movie because it's two different kinds of magic. Wait, what? Snyder literally equates the eternal profound concept of theology with physical sci-fi aliens. It is a catastrophic misunderstanding of narrative and philosophy, and yet it's treated as an immutable law in Hollywood pitching rooms. But honestly, nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, illustrates the artificial, disastrous limits of the Hollywood formula better than this number. Page 25. According to Snyder's beat sheet, a highly specific plot point called the break into two must happen exactly on page 25 of a script. Not page 28, not page 30, literally page 25. And this obsession infects the entire structure. Snyder insists the catalyst, or the inciting incident, must happen by page 12. Contrast this rigid obsession with arbitrary page numbers against the fluid academic reality taught by experts like Robert McKee. In the real world of storytelling, an inciting incident happens organically, exactly when the story dictates it should. Forcing a character to undergo a massive, life-altering change right on minute 12 simply because a spreadsheet demands it, that is exactly why so many modern films feel totally hollow. Part 5. Function over rigid structure. It's time to elevate this whole narrative from Hollywood hacks to the deeper academic truth. When we strip away all the beat sheets and the arbitrary page counts, what is the actual functioning engine of a story? Structure doesn't come from randomly hitting a plot point on page 25. Story is the inevitable functional collision between a character and their world. The character has an undeniable difference with the reality they live in, and that friction generates conflict. That right there, that is the raw, beating heart of cinema. So let's redefine the inciting incident. It's not some corporate mandate for page 12. As McKee defines it, it's an event that radically upsets the balance of forces in the protagonist's life. It's a functional disruption. It rips the character out of their baseline and compels true, unavoidable change. It is about emotional stakes, not a stopwatch. Which brings us to the ultimate truth of screenwriting, summarized absolutely perfectly by John York. The greater the conflict, the less visible the exposition. Authentic emotional conflict is the ultimate tool. If we, the audience, are mesmerized by the collision between the character and their world, you don't need a swimming pope, you don't need a whammo, and you definitely don't need to worry if you're on page 24 or 26. The tension itself holds us hostage. So, I'm going to leave you with this provocation. The next time you sit down in a dark theater and that massive studio logo fades out, I want you to look closely at the gears turning on screen. Are you watching a true, organic collision of character and world, or are you just watching a carefully timed, paint-by-numbers algorithm playing out exactly as the formula demands? Interrogate the media you consume. The truth is hiding right there on the screen.